Welcome to the weekly 30-30 list. We're looking at the top 30 momentum companies on the ASX and the top 30 on the Launchpad. This is often where the Launchpad leaders move into becoming the best momentum companies on the ASX. And if we can identify a theme or a leading thematic, that's really an indication for us it's a good time to trade. Gary Glover has been through both lists, plus he's going to share a fair few insights. Some of the insights come from the members who send through their requests. They get the list at the same time Gary does. On the Thursday afternoon, they say, hey, how about this one or this one? If Gary hasn't already covered it, we throw it in there. We got some really good questions this week that we're going to answer right at the end about we're coming into an earnings season. Do we hold? Do we lighten off? What happens if it gaps down? These are really good questions because we have seen some strong momentum companies in the past gap down dramatically. So we'll cover all of that. We'll start off saying, good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Chris. Good. Yeah, it's actually a couple of good questions there. Actually, on the people posted a couple of questions on the YouTube channel there in the comments. So, if you have any worthy questions, please put them in there. We'll do our best. Please make them. Just don't post stocks that have been trending out for 6 or 12 months. Yeah, so that's kind of not what we're really about. But trading to earnings and then what to do and what can go wrong and stuff there are really good questions. So we'll cover them at the end.
Yeah, we will. And it's something we've talked about before because you've had positions in the past. So it'll be a great one to cover. But if we start off with the momentum companies, and we did have a question this week just to differentiate the two. So the momentum, we look back over the last quarter and find the companies that have performed the best. So sometimes it might shoot up in the last 2 days after flatlining and doesn't show up and people ask why. It takes the whole quarter into account. So look at the calendar here, go back 3 months, and then you can see the movement. And Gary's got PTR as the first one on this sort of short list that he's picked out. So what is it in PTR that's caught your eye, Gary?
Yeah, so I guess for the quarter, it's gone from 2 to 20. So that's 10 times. So that's, So that's a good quarterly performance there, 214%, which makes it number one on your list. So, hopefully that clarifies that momentum there. But no, there's just sort of show the number one there. Looks just pretty much gapped up and kept running there, which was a bit hard there. But the only one I sort of saw there was number 5 on the list was Tryptamine Limited, TYP. I thought this was sort of interesting. It's still a pretty small name, Chris, but has had a good run here. Yeah, sort of gapped up, did a little tight consolidation there, and then kicked on. So it's had a nice little congestion there, and then a nice rally. The volume of the rally's been pretty steady, even though it's only a smaller name. But what I do like here is that it's had the 1 day down, and then since then there hasn't been a lot of volume going through. So the volume's actually dried up here. So so potentially it might get a little tight little flag here. Sort of, you like to sort of see these things sort of stay square rather than come back too deep. But good sign so far that there's not too much shelling in there. It's too small for me personally, but that's just one that sort of doesn't look too bad there. FCL was one that we spoke about last week, Chris. I think it was on the list there last week. It might have just had that big gap up there. It's had a pretty good run there. You're now sort of looking for, a little tightening, phase like this. You like to see some sort of use up a bit of time on its side here. Yeah, saw that, a couple of big days, big volume, and then the whole thing consolidated, no volume. And then you maybe get one line down here, repositioning again, and away we go. So this has had a pretty good move here, an okay volume there. You want to sort of see this use up a bit more time, sort of scrub. So it's still worth keeping an eye on you. It's had a big move for this stuff here. That's probably the only negative. That's extra large move there. We saw, I think, it's on the list there, but that was the last couple of weeks there. We saw NEU have a big drive there. And then, so we're hoping this will tighten up here for, 3 to 5 days there, but it never really came. And then what has come is consistent selling there. So that's not what you want to see. So we want to sort of see it run up like this and then tighten off in a sideways low volume sort of setup there. So that's the thing here. Sort of we're seeing these momentum shares there, but you've still got to wait for them to sort of set up appropriately there. I think, sorry, I jumped ahead here. VUL was sort of one that's, been pretty strong here. I got stopped out here, sort of cut the 20 there, but it has sort of set up, did sort of set up a nice cup and handle there. You could have probably got reset on the, finishing above here or finishing above the handle as well. So this was actually still another, even though I got stopped out here, you could have come back into this sort of setup there because it's a nice little cup and handle there. And the thing about this is sort of like at the time that you're looking at here, you're probably thinking this looks extended. On the daily there, that would have been the top right. It would have looked extended. But if you zoom out, you realize that this is still potentially, this is nice. This has used up a lot of time here going sideways. And yeah, that's the whole thing sat on top of the previous move here. So if the trend builds quite nicely and sits on top of the previous high, this leaves it in a pretty strong position to go to a new high. So we've seen this thing run before here. That's a long correction as well. That's, this has come back a long time and then started to build here. So volumes are pretty solid through here, pretty solid coming out of the low as well, pretty solid on this rally. And the volume really dried up into that weekly setup as well. So our longer term time frames are saying this looks like a really good setup. Our daily was a little thrash in here, was a bit, but yeah. So I mean, look, this is the beauty of having different strategies. I mean, I use the 20. I have sort of thought about maybe just maybe using the last swing low as that sort of. That's another way of looking at it. Particularly if you'd sold some in the heat, which I did. I did sell some into this day. I just figured this might be the old high. There might be a place where it comes back. And I thought if it comes back and sets up a handle, I'll just buy it back in again. But it ended up undercutting here. So I sold some here and I sold some here. Locked in it, I might have sort of profit on the second parcel. But yeah, that's the beauty. Sometimes you can sort of come back in here. You think the weekly's pretty good setup here. So just didn't get much of a handle there. It's pretty quick. But VUL still looks pretty solid. So the longer term chart there still looks pretty robust there. So that should still be on your radar there because we might just get a nice consolidation as well. Again, the VUL IMR was one that we sort of spoke about previously. One that I did sort of trade previously as well. But yes, it's been pretty solid again. So the volume's been pretty healthy on the uptrend, and then pullbacks have been pretty, been a lot lighter here. Some pretty low volume pullbacks in here, some good rallies. So again, this looks pretty constructive. And again, if you drill out to your weekly setup as well, you can see this is a nice, it's a nice cup and handle as well on the weekly. So it's gone back to retest the high, pull back, lower volume, and then pierce the through here. So we know from our model books, Chris, when we go back and look at those strongest performers, that a lot of them look like this. So it's that going to that 52-week high. I think the last might have been 4 out of the last 5 there. I think we highlighted the 52-week high there. Breakout was the key to them. That's when the stock sort of changed. So everyone.
That was the catalyst, wasn't it? It sat there, that base, it sort of moved up, but until it created that 52-week high, it didn't start showing that star quality running, did it?
Yeah, and 98% of people would see the 52-week high and think, oh, it's already reached the high, and I can't buy it because it's the highest point on the chart, highest point, But reality is that those strongest names, they keep making 52-week highs regularly. So that's the thing you've got to get out of your mind a little bit. That's why sometimes much as we're predominantly looking at the daily setups for momentum shares, it is wise to go and have a look at that weekly setup as well. Just see the bigger structure there and just see what might be possible on the larger scale there. So SGI was another one there. That's that stealth group we talked about a while ago. So I think we actually talked about this after it had that really impulsive move, Chris. Yeah.
We'll be free for not to make the.
Yeah. I really like the name. Obviously, Stealth Group. Oh, that's a cool company name, I think they're like a mini Bunnings or something like from memory. I think I looked them up and had a look at them. Oh, it's sort of pretty interesting company, sort of growing quite nicely. But see how it's had a nice pause here. So So again, you had that really strong move here. And all through here, there was maybe one day of selling here, but then it didn't follow through and it's just gone sideways. So when you see that tight congestion, it's probably gone on a bit longer than you want to see. You normally want to this sort of came down into here, and then that's the point where you think it might build from here, but it's gone sideways for quite a while here. But there was no selling here. That was probably the key there. It's just apart from that one day of selling there wasn't really any follow through. So, and it stayed pretty high in the trend as well. So,
And just on your study of leaders, those consolidations, like what you've highlighted there between September, October into November, I think Volkowski will look on a high tide flag 2 to 6 weeks or longer, but you've actually found in studies, particularly with ASX model books, that these can be 3 to 5 months at times, can't they?
yeah, they can do. Yeah, they can do. It's sort of like normally that would be like, that's a fairly short move. That's really only, what are we looking at? Sort of 10 bars in there. So it's only really sort of 2 or 3 weeks. So that's not really, normally that might be get longer. That might run a month or 2 months, and then you get your 3 to 5 months there. But that's a really short move in time there. So that sort of move there, that's the sort of classic, something like that might be, say, twice as much time. So it goes up, say, 6 or 8 days, maybe it goes sideways for 12 to 16 days, something like that. So, but yeah, that one's a bit long. But I guess the key there is just sort of seeing, not seeing the selling there. When you see those sideways consolidations there and the stock struggles to go down, it should be in your radar. And that on that day there actually did, I like, personally I like to sort of see a little B-wave break, and then that's my trigger there. So that would have been a trigger day there, and then just happened to be a massive volume day as well. So did go and retest. These things do like to shake people out. So I think it obviously went 0.5% lower than this little, but then it's kicked on there. So, yeah, it sounds funny, but that's a really good signal, because it's tried to shake. It's, it's like the fake out, and then the hand gets revealed, so it's a bit like a poker hand. It's sort of like someone's trying to fake your cap, but then you realize, oh shit, this guy's offering aces, so, when it finishes strong, big volume like that, strong, it's going to follow through there. CAY, again, look, kind of small, had a good run here. Again, the key there is just the volume. I know we harp on volume quite a lot there, Chris, but then some people don't look at volume. It's like one of the guys that I follow in the States, Mike Webster, he doesn't like volume. But apart from that about Mike, I like everything else about him. So his trading knowledge is, but he doesn't like volume. But I that's the crazy part for me. But I think this is, just shows here there's no selling in there. So it stayed pretty tight as well. And then you get a little trigger here. Like, again, you're looking for a little trigger. Too small for me personally, but still a fair sort of setup there. CAT, which is talking of model book stocks, Chris, this is one that's still going there. I think out of the 15 that we've featured there, probably only about 4 or 5 still an upward momentum. So where I think most of them now had some sort of a correction of sorts there. But this is just look how tight that is there. So yeah, it's pretty solid there. I mean, I was talking to a trader this morning here actually. You can see him here. This is sort of like it's gone to a new high and then come back into the trend, and then it's gone to a new high here, and then or actually did sit on top of that high there. So that's what I would like to sort of see. I don't like to see them overlap, because McLaren would sort of say that overlapping nature is not a sign of strength. It's sort of a sign of weakness. You want to sort of see the trend sitting on top of each other. So the trend just keep building on top of each other. So this one here, that was that's just perfect. That's really broken up here, gone sideways there, sat on top of that previous high, and then bang, and then that move there. Even if you brought that open or something there, what's that? 277 here. It's a 360. Yeah, that's a good move. So and it seems like you're playing late too, because it seems like it's too late. But these stocks, momentum stocks, when they sort of run, they wind up. It will sort of pop into the highs there. So that's the one thing I'm sort of starting to learn is here, that the juiciest part of the move is at the very end. So sort of got to hold your nerve there and, trade some into strength, but then try and hold the rest, to maybe get that really juicy, move there. S&D.
Going into question at the end because the reporting season, you can sort of wonder that, but the juiciest move at the end will be, yeah.
Yeah. So you can see here that FND there, that was sort of had a bit of a pullback there, a bit of an overbalance of the trend, but then it did sort of set up here. It did have what I refer to as a little B-wave break here. So it did break the swing higher there. So that would have been the first time that I would look at it. If I really like to stop that can be a chance for me to enter there. I think it sort of did get going here, but then it faded there. There wasn't a lot of volume when it faded, but it did come back undercut. So it did come back and undercut the B-wave. So I probably would have got dropped out. But then maybe it might have set up again here. But then it's actually has gone through again, broken this high there. So again, that might be the next trigger potentially. But the best setup I see on here is see how it's actually gone to a new high. Then it's pulled back, and then it's come back and just sat on top of that high. So there's our old high there. And the price has just come back and sat on top of that. So that's what you want to. That's a nice, good setup there. That's what we should be looking for. And then once it breaks through again, it pulls back here, and see there's between this high and this low here, there's now spacing now. So that tells you this trend is now accelerating. So a sideways trend will be overlapping, and then it will break out, maybe sit on top of the previous high. That's showing strength. And then once it starts really accelerating, it pulls back and it leaves spacing between the last high and the low. That's a sign that the trend is gaining momentum. Okay, so that's important to sort of distinguish that pullback there, like that bar there, was a show of strength. So you think, people must think, it's going to get high, I don't want to buy it. But that whole thing is just sat on top of that, left spacing in there. That's what McLaren used to refer to as bullish spacing. So this is that move there. So what, 450 up to 650. So $1.50, you're going to project that off the low here. So at $1.50 under 580 there, you're probably getting around at 820, which is the target, So,
is that juiciest part at the end that you're talking about when you're seeing that spacing after a good trend?
Yeah, it's just the measured move, things like that. So I normally I would measure that move, which I said was $6.50 to $4.50, so $2. And I would use 80% of that. So because sometimes you sort of put $2 target on there, and it only goes to 190 or 180, or it doesn't quite get there. Whereas I think if you sort of use 80% of that target there, that's going to have you up around there. So got pretty close to that. That's pretty close to a $2 move in there. Just give you some sort of guidance here as to how these sort of things move. FMD, so SKS, which we've talked about a few times there, still kicking on here. I did trade this out of this little tight pattern. I managed to get get myself set in here, sold into heat there. I think once went to a new high, just because the market at that stage, the market was doing these little tight moves, breaking to a new high and not kicking on. A lot of them were actually sort of trading out. So I actually traded out more than I normally would, just because I'd seen so many fail here. And the first 3 days it did fail, but there was no selling there. So that should have been a clue to come back in. For the first day up there, I should have been adding back in here, which I didn't, unfortunately. But it's kept going here. It's had a couple of days down here, a little sharp, but see where that pulled up, yeah? Right on top of that high. So that's what I mean. It's like, as long as the trend sort of structure builds here on top of it, builds top of this high, still in good shape here. So, and again, we got a nice green bar here, so it's still pretty positive here. So, in that sort of in that space that's hot at the moment there, data centers and construction around that, maintenance around it there. So yeah, definitely a buoyant sector there as well. Chris and I were just talking earlier as how important it is to me to be, when I'm looking through my stocks now and my opportunities, is I try and have a look and see how this, how strong the sector is as well. because I want to see that sector. At least I want to see that sector moving in the right trajectory as well. So sometimes you can come in a bit early in some sectors, but I want to see a little bit of strength in that sector. I don't want to be the lone hand in a bearish sector. That's normally going to be pretty. The odds are stacked against you. You want to be basically sort of running with a really strong sector, sector showing strength there. IBX, I thought this was interesting here. Did have a nice move the other week there. This is a little bit V-shaped there. You prefer to sort of see this sort of tighter. You would have preferred to have seen this sit on top of this high here. So I did kind of undercut that a little bit. So I wouldn't have liked seeing that. I know it's in the splitting hairs here about how it should look and sit on top there, but that would have closed below the tan, also closed below the high as well. I would have viewed that as a bit negative. And there was, there's 3 days there of sort of modest volume as well. So, but sometimes we're wrong in trading and it's kept going higher here. So, but yeah, this is a good little setup in here. It's obviously having a bit of a correction there, staying nice and tight, that little sideways, and then no volume there was a good little setup. RPX, Triple T, on the list there. Just a bit of selling on this last, I think. That's sort of, a bit of increased selling on the way down there, which is probably something I don't like to see. Did have this nice volume bar here, but it's taken a few more days here. I mean, like this is, I used to talk about counting days, Chris, as well. So like this has come down. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 days down. Now we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're more days up, and we haven't gone to a new high in the same amount of time. So it would sort of refer to those not showing strength. So if we pull back 3 days, we should go to a new high within 3 days. If we pull back 5 days, we should be at a new high within the 5 days. And if we aren't, then again, they can still go. Don't get me wrong, they can still move there, but it's not showing the sort of strength that you really want to see. So that would, that would probably force you to maybe tighten up your trading and make sure, don't want to see this thing go up here because it's not showing the strength that you want to sort of see.
And that's sort of, you're looking at the odds of a downside movement are slightly higher than an upside movement because of that. Doesn't mean it will, but that's why you're tightening a stop.
Yeah, I mean, you just want to see the perfect. I mean, like I know the perfect. It's like, I guess in surfing terms, Chris, the perfect wave doesn't always come along, but you when it's sort of like, it's a clean set. The weather, the tide, and there's certain setups that you're going to sort of see over and over again that you want to take there, but it's a little messy, a bit of windy, and the odds are sort of slightly negative there, and then but it's the same with the stocks here. You want to sort of see that impulsive move, good volume. You want to see it nice and tight, dry up, see the volume come back in again. It's if you read a bit of Wyckoff there, Wyckoff's quite interesting because it sort of tells you what you should be seeing. And then it also sort of says every now and again it can be an anomaly in the chart, and it's like if you see a wide range day, and there's no volume behind it, that's unusual because if you're going through a lot of price points, you should be big volume. So a big wide range should be big volume either way. So if you saw your stock drop quite a lot, big bar down, but there was no volume in it, that you're going to be suspicious of that move. So, so you got to be there's certain tells there sort of as well. So, so there's things you're sort of looking for that I guess kind of ideal here. BIS I thought was okay. We did talk about this one the other week as well. There was a bit of a VCP in here, a little loose. Had this one leg down here, tighten up in here. And then had the little B wave break here, which was pretty solid. Come back a little bit there, but you should have had your stop back at the 50 or under the 10 or something at least. So you probably be still in this if you use that as your B wave break there, because there was good volume there. That was that was pretty nice sort of setup here, and then the whole thing tightened up again and then broke out. So I consider that a pretty good setup overall. But yeah, still looks okay there, bit messy, but I'll tell you what you want to see now. Maybe this thing congests here, maybe sits on top of this high, then goes again here. So what happens there? SIG, so there's continued obviously, kind of by the rumor sell attack here, sort of found that high and then has faded there. Trying to rally here now, but the volume's a bit light. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. Actually, I'll be sort of a bit suspicious of this one just because I think that high's come in on the perfect news there. So yeah. HMC. Gee, nice trend there, eh? For that. Geez, just hugged the 10 the whole time. So it's a bit like that. I don't know if T's T's finally broken. Well, that stock was hugging the 10 for forever. So at some stage it's going to break it. But you've seen a few of the stronger names actually break down here recently. So, but yeah, this one's been really, really strong here, HMC. So, yeah.
When you're talking about the juiciest part of the end, I don't know if it's the end. Time will tell. But $7.50 to $12, that's a pretty steady rise and gapping dollar in a day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not against personally. I mean, look, that's this stock's been pretty strong here. Had like a little three-way pullback. Yeah, undercut the 50, but then look, did break above the B wave here. So nice little B wave breakdown here. Probably a follow through as well here. So you could have maybe bought this breakout here, added to it on this break here, then stayed here, and then whether used, I would have probably been using the 20. Probably would have sold some in of strength up here, but didn't show much weakness, and then it just stayed here. So I mean, this thing's getting really extended here. So look, I know this, Kalamagi says stay with it until it breaks, but I know sort of David Ryan would be taking some off. Like he'd always hold some until it breaks the moving average, but he might be taking more and more off. You know what I mean? So the beauty of a position like this, that it's gone from like $8 to 12, so it's up 50%. So if you're taking half off and you're up 50%, you still got a fair chunk on. So and then if you sell another 25% or something, up here and stuff, it's right. Yeah, I'm personally trying to sell in the strength and then trying to stay until it breaks. But because I notice that a few of these things, they do tend to occasionally, some of them do go a bit further than you think. But yeah, there's no harm in taking a bit more off it, but it's really, really looking super overextended like that is at the moment there. But you probably should still leave a little bit on anyway. OSM was the only last one there, Chris. Yeah, there was a VCP after this little tight move here, a bit small, and then broke out again. Then I had another little VCP in here, whole thing tightened up again, another little move as well. So it gave you a few goes there, but it's come off a fair bit here already. Bit light volume wise, so probably keep an eye out there. But yeah, pretty small name, pretty new name as well. It's obviously it's obviously just a reset up there. That was the only one there. I think SQ2 was in there, but that's had a pretty good run there. Yeah, I did trade this one personally as well, but did not stay with this one here. So unfortunately,
You've covered most of the ones that were requested. There were just a couple right down at the end. We've got PAR that we've looked at many times before, and then there were a few further up.
Yeah, PAA, I just can't trust those guys. Look at the weekly chart, you're up against it. So, yeah. I do have a couple of clients who are sort of holding some of this. I think if it gets up into the mid-30s, just personally flick it. Yeah, I know there is some key dates coming up there where potentially, but I still think they're a long way from commerciality at this moment. So, unfortunately, they've just kept raising money as well here. So, yeah, I'm just just gonna have a hard time. You can see every time it's rallied, it's been met with a wall of sellers. So I keep saying the same thing. This one keeps getting asked about, but nothing's changed. What's the next one?
Right at the top of the list, number 2, VR1.
VR1. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It's had a pretty strong move. It's a little small, obviously, sort of gone from 1 cent to 3.6 there. But it's been really no sort of technical structure apart from just running here. So you want to sort of see this tighten up here at some point here, but Yeah, just pretty healthy volume all the way through here, so it's looking pretty robust, really. So I think it's pretty much hasn't broken the 10 here so far, so that's probably a guide. Personally, probably because this thing's running here, you probably don't want to step close by the 10 over the average, but too small for me.
Right. And then there was POL, which was, what was that, 12th on the list?
Yeah, covered this one previously there, just going through a bit of a consolidation as well. Not that I'm a big head and shoulders fan there, Chris, but that is a head and shoulders setup there. And that's often how some of these smaller names do sort of peel off. They do, I remember reading a book there called The Foldback Technique where this guy was sort of saying, if you can look on a lot of charts, find a low or a high there, how the market trades into that point, it'll follow the same path out that went in. So think about double tops and head and shoulders but even sometimes you sort of see a point on the chart there where you can sort of see the market will mirror itself out. And, when I read this book, I thought, oh, this guy's crazy. Then I just started seeing like everywhere. So, but this is a classic point in case here. So it's obviously gone up to this high here. And now sort of like it's had like as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then this is what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here was this 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty similar. Peeling away here. It's just, it's sometimes you're sort of going to be careful of mirroring sort of setups there. So you probably want to see this go through consolidation there. It has broken the 20 now, which is obviously not a good sign. But yeah, look, that's a pretty good run. So that's, talking 25 up to 90 there. So there's, 300-400% move there. So that definitely goes on our list there, Chris, as well, of a 100% club. But now we're looking for this thing to go through a pause there. And as you, spoke of earlier, this could go for a pause for a month, 2 or even 5 months. We don't know. But that's the type of move we normally would sort of see at least. That's probably a 2-month move in there. So that's the sort of, that's what we're looking for as well. So there's been good volume all the way through. That's really good. So now we just got to wait for this thing hopefully to hold up here, not sell off too much, go sideways for a while. But I'd say the big gains have been met here for a while. It's probably going to churn it out here, best case scenario.
And I can say from studying that pattern, one of the biggest input factors is to know whether, like you said earlier, it's in a strong thematic sector industry. If it's got that peer support, the probability of it making its way out of a high and tight flag, if that holds it, is doubled if it's got peers in it. So
yeah. So polymetals resources, I'm guessing, is in a sort of probably the new metal space there. Don't know the company itself, but probably titanium or
but that's Iris. It can always be off, especially report rare.
There might be some other metals in there.
I'll drill in and have a look later. But the last one on the momentum list was PBH PointsBet, which we have looked at a fair few times over the years.
Yeah,
PBH is back in the list again this week.
Still hanging around there, getting a bit long on the tooth here now. So still has hugged that 10, Chris, as well. So you can see how it's this move's been pretty extended here, but it hasn't broken the 10 yet. So it managed to sort of so you probably just don't want to see it close below the 10-day moving average there. So again, a move like that, I personally would be selling some of the heat as well. But you would be sort of tightening up here. At the very least, I'll be sort of trying to use the last swing lows as well. So, had lows, down here, and now we've sort of got lows here. This is the last little swing low there. So I just wouldn't want to see that level get broken. So that'd be as far back as I want to be. What's that? 91.5 cents. So yeah, my stop might be at 91 or 90.5 something. But to be honest, it probably should be sort of selling some into this sort of heat as well here, because we know these things can go longer than everyone thinks. But we do know that when they're done, they're going to have a bigger correction and most people think as well. So, both sides there.
Well, we did have a question. If that's the end of the momentum list, we had a question asking just to clarify what we use the Launchpad for. And there's sort of 3 main things that it picks up. It's always a weekly movement. So quarterly performance is strongest move over the quarter. The Launchpad, we zero in and say, well, pull back a week. What did that look like? And how's the movement that we've had? And if Gary's got the screen share on at the moment, but if we can just use the first two as examples. So if we look at CLG, which is first, I don't know if this is one that Gary would add to the list. They were asking, well, is it a momentum company and then it flatlines and then it's looking to break out again? Is that what comes up in the launchpad? It is, but it's also an example like CLG. Clearly, it's been one-way traffic, been going down. It's formed a bit of a base throughout October and November, and then it's popped up. And that's showed us that, hang on a second, something's happened in the last week. So we sort of mark that down, and we'd use these three different groups to get to a point that Gary mentioned earlier about finding the leading thematics. The next one in the list, what's that, CYL? And if Gary can just change that chart over too, please. Obviously, this is a momentum leader. Gary's talking about hugging the 10-day and the 20-day moving averages. It's done that. And then it breached, overbalanced, looks like it's come down, probed under the red line, which is that 50-day moving average. But if we look at it in the last week, it has quickly reversed its position and it's sort of rallying significantly. So we're looking for that. We're also looking for those consolidations that Gary's talked about, two momentum companies have done. It's how they performed in the last week. And we put all of that together. And if we can find a leading theme within this group, that's the brilliant part. And earlier in this week, Gary and I were looking at it and he noted that there was a lot of energy companies in there. So that's sort of how I look at the Launchpad. Is anything that you add to what you do with the Launchpad, Gary?
I saw early in the week we had energy, which I thought was pretty interesting because every analyst in Australia here was pretty much negative energy and telling everyone don't buy energy. So, so I thought that was interesting that actually sort of showed up some strength there. And obviously on the this list here is a lot of gold names in there, Chris, as well. So, so normally when I see a Launchpad like this and I see lots of sectors there, I can be a bit of a positive there. But if you look through those gold stocks there, the only issue I've got here is that gold's already been a leading theme, and it's just overbalanced there, similar to CYL. I mean, that CYL, that's been a really strong stock there. It has momentum there, but then it's overbalanced the trend. So it's broken out 20, broken out 50. I know maybe it's bounced back again here, but that's still sort of, I consider that still a negative situation for me personally. I'd like to sort of see it build, sideways and then maybe use a bit of time up and then come again. It's still potentially can break down here. So the golds are a little bit like that, Chris. They've all had a fairly decent sort of size pullback. Again, broken the 10, 20, 50. Most of them have done that. Been a bit of selling as well on some of those golds as well. They've all come off reasonably hard here, but they've all had a bit of a bounce there. The gold's had a bit of a bounce there. I think Evolution. This is one thing I've noticed there is that see how that volume has tapered off here. So it's gone up here on declining volume. Evolution, I think there might be the greys in there as well. Again, going up on, so it's had a nice bounce here, don't get me wrong, bounced back pretty quickly. But yeah, so it's just got me a little suspicious of that bounce there because that is the biggest correction of the move here. And as I said before, when you get the overbalance of the trend, you can, what normally happens is you either go up and make a first lower high, or sometimes you can actually go up and make a marginal new high. So some of those goals could actually go back to new highs here. But I'd still be suspicious of those just because that last correction was the biggest of the move. That does put the trend at risk there. So I'm just, normally I see a sector light up in the Launchpad, I get excited. But because they've already been running for so long here, this is sort of coming a bit late, so I'm a little suspicious of that lateness there. So, so I'll just be a little careful there. Where something like WA1 is a different story. That's basically gone through that's been a leader, and then it's gone through a nice consolidation, Chris, and it's really used up a lot of time here. And then the whole thing did tighten up in here as well. So we sort of saw, if we look at our weekly setup, you can see here that the whole thing's just set on top of that previous high. So that's pretty constructive longer term. Even though this is an overbalance there, we can use up a lot of time here. But we know that these old leaders can go again. I mean, there's a good point there. 23 down to 12 there. So there's a 50% correction, which we normally see in those leading themes, but they can potentially set up again. Yeah, so we know that they can, so we always got to keep an eye out for these old lows. They can go again there, as we've seen there. But the thing about this one here has been in a downtrend for a while here, but the whole thing's overlapping as well. So it's, just been consolidating here. I actually did buy this one, Chris. I bought some on this little B-wave break. I like to sort of see a swing high break. And so I was watching this one here. And I did add a small position in here. And then I've added a position on the break on the other high as well. So now I've got a pretty good position on here. So, I've got a nice starting position here around 10%, and I added another 5% in here. And yeah, so now I'll use this, probably the moving average as my stop here, just under 14. Hopefully the kit's moving up. I'll sell some into heat. Maybe I'll sell some up at 18, an old level or something there, or maybe a bit more. Depends how it looks. It hasn't had the best volume here so far. It's not really having that. Love to sort of see how this had some really chunky volume there early, and it really drove through. I think this one here was a few decent days in here, but we'll see. The volume was okay yesterday. Maybe we can carry on a bit more today as well. But yeah, we just slightly different sort of setups there you want to look at there. NEC I thought was interesting as well. So gone to a new high now. So possible change of character. So again, this is a really strong downtrend. And you want to sort of see it break up the swing highs went to there. It's probably going to have to come back and build again, Chris, as well. So it'll probably consolidate. But the fact that there's a bit of volume down here, the fact that we've broken above an old high, does suggest that maybe it's a change of character there. So, it's not, I prefer to sort of see them in stronger positions than this. But yeah, could be, I can't sort of rule it out down the track there. Those Jumbo's had a bit of a move as well. I do like Jumbo. I just think, I think the market's actually overdealt this there. Just the fact that they don't have that many jackpots this year. But that changes over time. So this has had a nice little rally here. Now probably looking for sort of some sort of consolidation there on light volume. So I'd love to see like a little, some little flag, like do some little tight consolidation. See no volume in there. Something like that would be a nice sort of setup here. Maybe sitting above the 50 or something like that. But it goes on the watch list there just because I do like the stock. Fundamentals are pretty strong, and we just want to sort of see it set up technically.
Just what you say there kind of defies logic to me based on your whole Tuesday report's all about probabilities and what you're looking at here. But Jumbo, if it's being sold down because it doesn't have any jackpots, that sort of brings to reasonable. Then if it does have a lot of jackpots and the share price is running up, then that would mean it's expensive, and the probability of it maintaining that is not there because it will eventually jackpot out, and then they'll be in the situation that they're in. So it's almost as if you should be buying it counter-cyclical to the jackpots, and this would be a time to buy.
Yeah.
And no one wants it. And then obviously at some point, probabilities are there will be jackpots later. Isn't that kind of, sorry, I'm just thinking on the fly.
Oh, if you're an analyst, you know this already. You know that the business will have periods there where the jackpots, they go off all the time. And then the other periods where they don't go off, and then what that means is the kitty grows, and then more and more people, the bigger ones everyone jumps into, the 10 and 20 mils, they're just sort of standard, but 30, 40 to 60 million jackpots there. They're the ones that everyone buys an extra ticket, and then volume goes up. So, but you don't know when that's going to happen. You just go through spurts. It's just red. Yeah, exactly. Like that's like So it's like playing blackjack. You'll get a new dealer come in, and all of a sudden he'll be giving you terrible cards, and then all of a sudden he goes on a break, and the next guy starts. The next thing you know, he's throwing you tens and kings and jacks, and that's all good. So you don't know the flows, ebbs and flows will move there, but over time, it'll have its sort of swings and roundabouts there. So, but the share price shouldn't really move from 12 to 18 based on that sort of spending, because everyone knows that those swings are going to occur here. But that's the beauty of the share market. We're not always rational. So,
sorry, an aside there. We're always talking about probabilities, and that's like case in point. Anyway,
yeah.
next on your list, sorry.
ABA, there's sort of one there that's yeah, look, it has sort of broken a little bit of a B wave here. It's probably just not a big, it's not a high momentum sort of share normally. So Auswide Bank. So yeah, obviously the financial sector's been pretty robust there. So yeah, technically this looks okay there, but I'm just not sure you'll get a big move there. But chart looks okay. MMI, thought it was on actually a nice little cup and handle. Yeah, Chris as well. Sort of had a pretty good run. Had a bit of a deep pullback there, but it's probably still stayed in the top half. It's a little small for me, but it's gone back to retest a high there. And then, yeah, not too much activity in here. A little bit down here, but then we've sort of seen volume come back again. So it's interesting there. Too small for me, but yeah, maybe worthy of a bit more homework if someone likes to trade those smaller ones. I'm personally, I just stay away from the small ones. I just don't like the percentage moves. I like to be liquid. ING I thought was interesting there just because that has a change of character. It's had a nice impulsive move, and then we're seeing a bit of sideways move here. So far this is looking okay. What I'd love to see is a couple more down days here, but holding tight here. But and also seeing the volume, like the volume dried up today that's all I'd see. What are we, 12 o'clock here? And what's this trade of 275,000 shares? That's nothing compared to what previous days 1.43 million, and what are we trading here? Sort of 2.5 million shares here. So yeah, that's good. That's interesting there because that's maybe not the strongest company, but had an impulsive move out of here. You just want to see it nice and tight. Maybe you can go there. I saw one there recently. I think it was PRN. That was a nice impulsive move here. So again, it's in a good sector. But the whole thing tightened up here. I saw the VCP. So it's actually broken up out of here. And it's kicked on pretty nicely. So what I liked about that was the good sort of daily setup there. Yeah, nice spacing between the highs as well. So in a strong position. And also when I drilled out as well, I thought, okay, this has had been trending up for a while here now. It's got left some spacing in here as well. So that's pretty buoyant. And then a weekly chart. So that's the last sort of high around here. So there's no reason why we can't go back and retest that high around 136. This is pretty constructive. And it's been we've had some pretty decent green, good volume bars through here as well. And dried up on the pullbacks there. So this looks pretty good. Looks pretty optimistic we can get to 135, maybe 140 on this. So, yeah, sure I had a big position, but that's all right. I'm pretty happy with the lot Aussies at the moment, so I can't complain. ING, APA was on the list there as well. Had a bit of a bounce there, but again, it's pretty strong downtrend. Been trending down for a while. Sort of DTL was sort of one that I saw on my list there last week. Chris had bit of a VCP in here, got that little ascending triangle sort of set up in there. Pretty tight in there, just broken out today. Pretty low volume there. So, yeah, got to be careful there. But it looks okay. Just the volumes aren't awesome there. I saw one during the week there I thought was a pretty good setup, was GWA. I thought this was like a nice VCP here. I thought this was a good signal during the week, but when it broke out here, there was just no volume as well. So I was watching this thing. Oh, this looks like a nice little B wave break here, but there was just no volume here as well. The 3 days leading up to it, no volume, and the breakout day, no volume went through and actually ended up fading. So I mean, sometimes you got your signals there. It's got to look right as well. So it just didn't come back. Maybe this one's just got to watch it a bit longer. That is a sector which has been reasonably robust at the moment. Still might be a VCP set up a bit longer. Going to be a pretty light volume week as well, so maybe just needs a bit more time, but fun to watch. But that's about it, Chris. I think that's our list there.
There was one that you didn't cover on the request side, so the members type in and say, if you can have a look at this chart, that'd be great, please, because I obviously get the list at the same time Gary does on the Thursday. SPM, St. Barbara. So you run through a lot of golds. That was, I think, what if you did, it was quickly.
Yeah, it's been one of the weaker ones there. They actually did make a fairly decent recovery here, which was probably good to see for the shareholders there. But it had a pretty negative, had a bit of a negative update here, and it's gapped down here. So So again, look at that volume, Chris, as well. So this is what I'm worried about with Juiciest Goals. See how heavy that was? Now we're bouncing here on, getting lighter and lighter. That's just not what you want to see. That's not, we talk about Wyckoff there, about what you should see. That's not what you want to see. You don't want to see this go up on declining volume rally there. So, if I was long some of this, I'd be nervous, because that's, we're going up, less and less momentum and less and less volume there. So it just means less and less participants are driving that higher there. So I could be wrong, but that's just not what you want to see. That's just not, I guess it's all about the odds as well. I mean, I can tell you this, what it looks like and momentum, what it ideally should look like. But sometimes the charts can do stuff that you didn't think was there. But I know 8 times out of 10, you go and study all the winners, they have a certain look. They have a certain setup there, they move impulsively, good volume when they move higher. When they pull back, light volume, stay nice and tight. Less activity. So those are things that you want to be looking for. That's the setup there. You don't want to be sort of seeing distribution day, sort of heavy down days, So if you don't know what a distribution day is, go and look it up at IBD, because if you start to see a cluster of distribution days on your stocks, you see sort of 4 or 5 heavy selling down days. That's a bit of a warning sign for your stock as well.
Definitely. And while you've got that chart there, it's a good segue into the part that we were going to finish with, which was a question that came up. What do we do when we trade into, if you're holding a momentum trader and then a massive gap happens, a news announcement, and SBM's got it there. We were going to use WiseTech as an example, but whichever one you want, Gary, can you sort of walk us through how do you trade into this? So how do you sort of mitigate it? But then when it does happen, which it can happen, terrible does happen, what do you do when terrible news happens and it gaps through your stock?
Yeah, that's a great question there, because like we've had these momentum winners. Obviously, they can run up pretty aggressively, and then you can get news like whether it's an AGM or earnings there, can really sort of shock the stock. So if you read about you're probably Minervini and Oliver Kell and Caruso and those sort of guys there, most of them actually, Chris, don't hold into earnings, or if they do hold into earnings, they usually won't have a full position into earnings. They'll lighten off, and they'll only hold it into earnings if they've got a reasonable buffer. So they might want to be up 10 or 15% already. So if it all goes pear shaped, then and they're only say holding half the position or quarter position, then it's not going to be the end of the world. But there are a lot of professional traders who won't hold stocks full stop into earnings, and miss that gap. So gap up or gap down just to avoid it there. So
that mitigates what's already on the calendar coming up. Yes, there's an AGM book. No earnings is coming out.
But me personally, Chris, I had a position this year in 360, and I knew that the earnings was coming out, and I think I had a 20% position on, and it had moved up quite nicely into the earnings, and I took off half the day before earnings, just as a precautionary stop there. So maybe you can say, selling into heat there, but I just didn't want to have that much risk on the table coming into earnings. Even though I was pretty confident it was going to be good, that's why I left half on, and it kept going there. But that's the way I personally would play it. And then if you get the worst case scenario here, you say something like WiseTech today, it's actually, it's gone from 139 and opened at 112. That's a fair whack. That's, so how do you deal with that? So if you just say you took half off and left half on, and then the stock gaps down 20%, what do we do? So it is a great question there, because me personally, I would probably, like my rules say to get out regardless. Okay. So that's my rules basically. Sort of if I'm trading momentum shares and all of a sudden there's a negative news out there and it gaps down, my rules tell me just to get out on the open and sell out there. But when you get get something, well, that's 140 down to 112 there. There's, it's a $27 move on 130. That's a fair move there. So you might sort of see that as an overreaction. So me personally, if I thought it was gonna be, if I thought the company, was just a small miss and yet it got hit pretty hard, you got to make a bit of a judgment call. I personally would at least trade half of it on the open. If I thought it could bounce, then I'll try and trade the other half on a bounce there. But it doesn't always go to plan that way. So we saw with WiseTech here, obviously went down to 112 and now it's bounced back up to the 125 zone. So that you might have sold some at 112 there, maybe you sold the other half at 125, so you net out, in the middle of 120. So it worked on that occasion there. But one of the viewers there was talking about a couple of stocks there in the States there. So, I mean, this SPNS, which is a US share, obviously it's gone from 39 down to 30, so pretty ugly there. So again, you can sell half and then, or do the whole lot. So it might have worked in that case, and it might have worked in WiseTech case here, but here's another one here that's sort of $37, and then it gaps down to 33. So you say, okay, well, I'll just trade half, and then it's at 28 by the end of the day. So you probably should have gotten out of all of it. So I would say at least I'd be personally putting half in at least. If I saw something gap down $20, $30, let's say it was down 20%, I'd at least do half, and then I'd see how the stock traded in the first 15 minutes. Like, I wouldn't want to see it keep going. If it keep going down, you got to be up the first 15 minutes. If it bounces, recovers, then maybe just Yeah. You still wanted to get out. I think you want to get out that day personally, Chris, as well. Like it's now, you're now just hanging on because
you're striking. The regulator the trade, the thesis is wrong. The market's done something else. You're ready. Not that.
Definitely your thesis, it's all gone there. So you're just looking to exit there. You're trying to exit without the least amount of damage. So if you get a nice little bounce and you should be out there. I mean, I often will try and have myself out in the first hour. I don't want to be in there any longer than that. So that's the way I look at it. But you can see there, some of them will gap and keep going. Others, so that's why I think you got to make a judgment call on the result itself. Have a look at what you think the company's done there, but I don't think you should be hanging on to it personally. Like where gaps down, it's a negative news, even like WiseTech has actually recovered in it. It's obviously a great company, but if I saw that recover that back to 125, I hadn't covered any, but I probably, going back to the 50 is probably a good place to exit. And then just reset, step back and look for other trades, wait for it to set up again. But yeah.
Right. It's a difficult one to trade. And we can just see on the chart there in October, there was the dramatic news that we all looked at and saw. That'd be a similar thing. 105 sort of open there. You'd sell 50% into that. I can't recall the exact movements of the day, but if it starts trending towards 100, you're probably out within 10 or 15 minutes. Are you saying this is not?
Yeah. See, most of the time I have stops in place. So the gaps through my stops, then I've got to go and take the stops off. Or if I see it going to gap down, then I know my stop's pointless. It's going to go straight through it. And I cancel my stop and then I put my sell order in. I'm going to put the whole order in, and then So usually I'll go out straight away, or maybe I'll lay on my orders or something like that.
Just to clarify that one, when you put your whole order in, we trade with Iris where you can put your whole order into the pad, but you not put the whole order into the market.
That's right. So I can I've got the ability to do that. So I can put the order in put one order in, but then I can layer at different levels and stuff there. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think you've got to have a plan for these things. So my rules tell me just to get out on the open regardless. But something extra, dramatic happens, and I think it's overdealt, then I might do half only, and then try and bank on maybe half it. But I'll be out in the first hour, 100% of the time. I won't hang in there. Scout through my stop. It's telling me, everything's telling me I must be out. So all I'm trying to do is middle-fire the loss, the size of the loss. But as you can see there, we look through some of those charts there. Some of them will recover. Some of them will keep going down. So whatever you're going to do the same thing. Yeah, have a plan for it and do the same thing every time, man. So for me, I'd say 98 times out of 100, I'm out. The 2% of the time that I'm doing at least, I'm doing half, and then I'm trying to get the rest out there. But thankfully, it hasn't happened too many times there. I've been gapped down and belted like that. And if it is, it's usually on smaller positions there. Yeah, I closed a small position out a couple of days ago, and I just had a little bit left, and actually got hit the following day. I thought over harshly, and I thought it was actually a buy when we got down to a certain level. And I thought, this company, that's a pretty good result. I think the company was like a 70 mil market cap, and it had a revenue of 200 mil. So it was not even, and still making like a 10% margin. So I was around making about 20 mil profit a year. So that's still it's a bit of a busy business, sort of not a high margin business, but it's still a hard business to replicate. Pretty steady business as well. So, but I actually wanted to buy it after the first dab. I thought, no, I've got this small piece. So I thought it'll recover. And it did, but it didn't sort of, meet my rules, Chris. So I was kind of happy I didn't, even though I could have made a pretty nice 20% profit in about an hour. I just chose not to trade it because it's not my rules and not my wheelhouse anymore. I just got to be diligent over time. Even I missed out on a 20% trade there on a smaller position, but I just got to stick to my rules there. So, you get the problem with weapons there. You get caught in something like that, which is outside of your parameters, outside your rules, and then you're in there. Then you're operating differently from the rules, and you don't have a plan for it. And then what are you doing? And then you end up getting stuck in there. And then the following day, you're still stuck in there. And a trade comes up where you potentially get a 20% move, and the stock gaps up 10%, and you missed it because you're
Distracted
around on this other sort of stock here because you're seeing something which looked good. So you got to be disciplined. That's the key there. I'm trying to take my trading to the next level, trying to be really disciplined and trying to follow my plan to the T now. So I'm almost there. So, that's where I'm sort of trying to aim towards to be at. Or I want to be like Menavina, who just trades that one setup only. So I've got 4 setups, but I just want to trade those 4 finite sort of setups, and they got to be spotless. They got to be perfect for me to trade them. That's where I'm trying to get to.
Nice. Well, before we say thank you and goodbye, I'd like to thank the viewers who have made it this far. And those who are watching, we're actually interested in your opinion, so please comment below on this. Before we were recording, Gary and I were talking about some other metrics that we've got, which they indicate when is a good time for momentum trading. So Gary's been helping sort of shape it into a way that makes sense to most, as opposed to someone who's just created the data and has spent years working on it. So we're interested in your thoughts as to whether that type of metric would be useful for you. As in, Gary talked about the perfect wave before. We want to have the right tide. We want to have the right wind, the right swell direction. We want everything in our favor. And we want to know, so we've got a metric that helps identify that. I want to know if you're interested in that kind of thing. So please, if you are, comment below. You've made it this far, so you're the exact viewers that we want to hear from. And to that end, we then wrap up and say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.